how to create a memory palace. So the first step in creating a memory palace, or at least the way that I do it, is to learn to remember numbers, because numbers are going to be important in creating your memory palace. So I have got a video that teaches you specifically how to remember numbers and number sequences, but in case you haven't watched it, I'll do a quick little version of that video here, but I will put a link in this description on how to remember numbers and number sequences. So here's a quick overview of remembering numbers and number sequences, and then I'll talk you through how that works with creating a memory palace. So in order to remember numbers and number sequences, we're going to assign each number a letter. So the number 1 is going to be T or D. So a T or D sound, because it's all about the sound. So the letter 2, or sorry, the word 2, T-O, would represent the number 1, because O does not feature, it has no number. The word do would also represent the number 1, because it starts with a D, it's that T or D sound. 2 is represented by N, 3 by M, 4 by R, 5 by L, 6 by J or Ch, 7 by K or a hard G as in go, 8 by the letter F, 9 by P or B, so P, the word P, P-E-A, that again would be represented by 9, and the word B, B-E or B-E-E would be 9 as well, and 0 is S or Z, so it's to do with the sound. So if you had the word toes, we've got a T and a S, so that would be the number 10, T and S, toes. If we had the word land, we've got 5, 3, 1. L, A, N, D. Okay? So this is how we remember sequences of numbers and also numbers. So there's a bigger video on my channel, which I'll put a description in, the link. So I'll put a link in the description, which will teach you a little bit more about how this works. But once you've got that down, you use this in your memory palace, which I'll show you now. So the next stage in creating your memory palace, once you understand how numbers work in terms of a mnemonic technique, is to think of a place that you're familiar with, and this place needs to be a place that you can mentally walk around in order. So the easiest way to do it is to create a floor plan of somewhere that you know really well, for example your home or where you work. So I'm going to quickly draw out a quick floor plan of my ground floor of the house that I live in, and then show you how this would work. So here is a little floor plan of the ground floor at my house. So you've got the front gate, this would be the front garden here, then you've got the gate, you've got the driveway, there's a little porch, actually got another little porch here as well. You've got the porch, the toilet, bedroom, hall, kitchen, lounge, office, studio and the stairs to take you up to the top floor obviously. So the first thing you want to do when you're imagining your home is walk around your home, but always go in the same direction. So if this is the front door here, I would always come in this way, walk around the house from left to right. So you might prefer to walk in and go right to left. I would leave this as a separate one because you have to go through the kitchen to come out here. So once you've created in your mind a place you're familiar with, and you've closed your eyes and you visualise walking around this building, the next thing you need to do is place specific items into each room that you can then attach things to, which is where your memory starts to work. So now we're at our memory palace. I've got rid of all the mess so that I can draw on here again. So here is the first place that you may stop in your palace, which is the gate. So for the gate, you want to add 2 items, and you can choose 1 item, 2, you can choose 100, it doesn't matter. But when I used to build my memory palaces, I would always choose 2 at each point. So here you want to place 2 objects, and these objects need to begin with the letter T or D. And the reason we do that is because T and D represent 1. So that's the first place in your memory palace. So 2 words that you can choose, T and toe. Now when you're placing items in your memory palace, make sure that you don't just place a cup of tea or a big toe or little toe or whatever there. You have to make it larger than life. So your cup of tea needs to be big enough for you to get in it. Your toe needs to be basketball size so you can bounce it, or create something in your mind that means you won't forget that it's in there. The other thing I would say is when placing items in your memory palace, place them in alphabetical order. That way you can remember things not only where they are, but in sequence. So if I said number 32 in your palace, you know exactly what that is. Okay. So here we've got the letter T or D, but that D or T sound representing 1. Then we come to the porch. So in here, on and no, 2 words that have got the letter N in it, but no other letters in our numerical sequence. So here you could have a massive on button, and you could have the word no, you could have a big no sign, you could have somebody waving no, whatever, but it will just create an image in your head. And then you walk around doing the same thing. Okay, so you'd have M, R, L, etc, etc. And you go around your memory palace placing things into your memory palace. So what I'm going to do now is just fill this up with what I would use, or what I would typically use, and then come back and show you how that works in terms of memorising things. So I've now placed words into each of the locations in my memory palace, and each of these words are now going to be hooks that I can hook things onto. So let's say, for example, I wanted to remember a book, an anchor, some shoes, and a pen. And I wanted to remember that in order. So the first thing, book, I've got a cup of tea here, so I'm going to place that book into my giant cup of tea. And you can even visualise the book as being massive, so you have to pick the book up and really lift it up to get it in the tea. The next thing is going to be an anchor. So you can imagine tying the anchor to a toe, or tying the toe to the anchor. You can imagine dropping the anchor on the toe so that it hurts, but it creates a memory so that you won't forget it. Next thing, so we filled up these 2 hooks here. We've got a pair of shoes. So we've got no comes before on in the alphabet, so that's going to be our number 3 hook. So pair of shoes. So you can imagine putting a great big no sign inside the pair of shoes, or getting a pair of shoes, holding them up, and somebody going no, 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 which is what my wife sometimes does when I decide that I want to buy a pair of shoes. And the pen, you can imagine there's a big on sign and you're scribbling over it, or you're colouring it in, or you're doing something along those lines. So now we know that the third thing in our sequence is shoes, and no. Now what you'll notice up here, because we've got different locations, we've got 10 locations, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So when we get to 10, we have to start using 2 letters, which is why I've got ties, which is 1, and S, which is 0, which gives you 10, D, which is 1, and Z, which is 0, which gives you 10. So using this palace, you can remember 20 things, and you can remember them in order. So you could create a shopping list and place something on each hook, go around your house or your room or your location and just hooking things onto your mnemonic words. So turning that from a room into a palace is obviously the next step. So what you would do is, this is the first floor of my home. I'd then take the second floor and do exactly the same thing. Then you can take another place that you're familiar with, so your work. So you do exactly the same thing in your work, you place that on top. Now, when you get up to the 11th room, you obviously need to use 2 T's or 2 D's. So you could say, for example, tattoo, because it's the sound. Even though there's 2 T's in there, you wouldn't use both those. It's a tattoo, 1, 1. Tight. Okay, that gives you your 11. When you go into the 12th, you want T and N. When you go into the 13th room, you want T and M, etc, etc. So you can build that up over time until you've got hundreds of different rooms or locations, hundreds of hooks, and you won't forget them because you've created them and you've visualised them. But not only that, you've done it in a numerical and alphabetical order, so that the order will always be the same. So that is pretty much how to create a memory palace, and I hope you found that useful.